Good morning. Yeah, as you can see, we are still sheltering in place. I don't know how long we'll be doing this, but I appreciate you logging in and listening to. We're going to have some fun this morning. We're doing the Kaleo lesson number 13, and we're still talking about Solomon and his wisdom. And so this should be lesson 4 of 6 in the wisdom. And as we start this morning, I just want to tell you that I saw this little story, and it speaks to what we're talking about this morning. It said a mom was out walking her 4-year-old daughter one day, and the girl picked up something from the sidewalk, as a lot of kids will do, and began to put it in her mouth. But her mom took it away from her and said, "Don't do that." Well, you know what the next question was? The daughter quickly said, "Why?" Well, because it's lying outside, you don't know where it's been. It's dirty and probably had germs. Well, the little girl looked at her mom with admiration and said, "Wow, how do you know all that stuff?" Well, they walked along. Well, the mom's response to that was, "All moms know this stuff. It's on the mommy test. You have to know it, or they don't let you be a mommy." Well, they walked along in silence for a few minutes, and then the little girl was beginning to process what her mom had said. And then she said, "Oh, I get it. If you don't pass the test, you have to be the daddy." Well, the mom smiled and replied, "Exactly." So you see, I don't know where that leaves us guys, but we probably have some work to do in that arena, don't we? So we thank the Lord for moms. We thank the Lord for moms and wives and those that live around us, protect us, guide us, and direct us. The text for today has been used through the years as a Mother's Day text. Now let me tell you that mostly, well, many of you probably could rightly say, when you read these verses, "Well, that's my mother. That's exactly who she is. She does these things." Well, it could be my mother too. Actually, my brother and I still talk about this some, how that mom did many of these things herself. You know what? I remember one time when she wrote me a birthday card, and I tried to find it, and I couldn't find it. I was going to read it to you because it's really a treasure for me. Now, I've got it at home somewhere. I just don't exactly know where yet, but I'll find it. Anyway, at one of my birthdays, she sent me a card. And I'm just going to use some numbers because I don't remember the exact numbers, but she started out that birthday card with this: "Some 43 years ago, I got up early. I cooked and fed 3 hungry boys. Then I went to the field. I picked tomatoes. I picked like 12 bushels of tomatoes. We hauled them to town. We sold them and dropped them off at the tomato shed. And later that day, I gave birth to my 4th child, that being me." And you know, I got to thinking about that. Wow, Mom did a lot of things like that. She was a pioneer woman, I like to refer to her, because she had that technique that she could do those things. And she did do them. In Jacksonville, Texas, tomatoes, it was one time the tomato capital of the world, believe it or not. That was their title. And we were part of that tomato business. So, you know, one of the things, this poem actually that we're going to study this morning, it deals with the practical aspects of married life. Now, it's an acrostic poem. Now, I'm not going to get into that acrostic poem definition, but I want you to ask Ernie Howard about that. He can explain that to you, what it all is. It's got to do with the alphabet and things. You know, it's both good and not so good to have retired pastors in your class, because it's fun in one way, and it's not so fun another way, because you know they're watching you. You know they're thinking about what you're saying. You know they've been there and done that. But then again, they answer a lot of questions for me. You see, when I run across something I don't understand, I just say, "Well, after the class, you ask Ernie about that, and he'll explain that." So that's my out there. That's why I appreciate having him in class. Proverbs is a book of wisdom sayings, guys, and so we find the values and virtues of life that pursues wisdom. Proverbs also gives some direct, distinct warnings of the foolishness and the folly that we will lead. As we talked last week, you can either go the broad way, which leads to destruction, or you can go the narrow way, which leads to God. There's some warnings about those things. The text gives us a picture of the character that comes in living a godly life, guys. So, you know what? Let me just tell you, I believe the Bible makes it clear that man is the head of God's creation. So if man is the head, then the woman must be the crown. See, when God made woman, he had finished with his creation. And woman was his last act of creation. So I want you to meditate on that a while about woman being a crown. And if you don't agree with that, well, you go and talk to Ernie, and he'll explain more about that to you. So someone had made the jest about Adam, that Adam went to sleep. He had surgery on his side, and he woke up with a pain in the neck. Now, I don't believe that's true, but you know, because one of the things, let me tell you guys, without godly women, you know, godly women are the backbone of the home and the church. Without godly women, without their work, without their influence, without their abilities, we would have to shutter the door to the church and declare the home an unfit place to live. And you think about that. I think it's true in this church. I think it's true in churches across the way. And you ask why. Why would you say something like that, Paul? Why would you say that we would need to shutter the doors if all the women went back home? Well, that's because by and large, men have not stepped up as leaders of the church. Men have not stepped up being the head of God's creation. Now, I'm going to be off my soapbox here now, and we're going to move on to the lesson. And I want you to know that in Proverbs 31, 10 through 31, let me just say, I'm going to read this from the Message. Gene Peterson's The Message, because it makes it very clear. He only uses one word I had to look up. Let me just read those verses 10 through 31 for you. A good woman is hard to find and worth far more than diamonds. Her husband trusts her without reserve and never has reason to regret it. Never spiteful, she treats him generously all her life long. She shops around for the best yarns and cottons and enjoys knitting and sewing. She's like a trading ship that sails to faraway places and brings back exotic surprises. She's up before dawn, preparing breakfast for her family and organizing her day. She looks over a field and buys it. Then with money she's put aside, she plants a garden. First thing in the morning, she dresses for work. She rolls up her sleeves, eager to get started. She senses the worth of her work, is in no hurry to call it quits for the day. She's skilled in the crafts of home and hearth, diligent in homemaking. She's quick to assist anyone in need. She reaches out to help the poor. She doesn't worry about her family when it snows. Their winter clothes are all mended and ready to wear. She makes her own clothing and dresses in colorful linens and silks. Her husband is greatly respected when he deliberates with the city fathers. She designs gowns and sells them. She brings the sweaters. She knits to the dress shops. Her clothes are well made and elegant, and she always faces tomorrow with a smile. When she speaks, she has something worthwhile to say, and she always says it kindly. She keeps an eye on everyone in her household and keeps them all busy and productive. Her children respect and bless her. Her husband joins in the words of praise. Many women have done wonderful things, but you've outclassed them all. Charm can mislead and beauty soon fade. The woman to be admired and praised is the woman who lives in the fear of God. Give her everything she deserves. Festoon her life with praises. I had to look that word up, festoon. You look it up too, and you'll know what it means then. So let me just, before we begin to unpack these verses one at a time, I want to go through And back up to verse 1 of that chapter. It says this, that the words of King Lemuel. Now, that's an interesting thought because there's no King Lemuel in history. He's not recorded anyway. He could have been a foreign king and wouldn't be recorded, but we got that, and the people are supposed to know, the commentaries that the people have studied Scripture for years, they believe this possibly was a pet name for Solomon. That was a name that he just used. And most of you, some of you at least, had a pet name when you were at home. Mom was talking to you, you had a pet name. Maybe some of them wasn't too pet, but anyway, I bet you had one anyway. Lemuel means dedicated to God. Now in verse 2 it says this, note who taught Lemuel. You see that? What, O my son, and what, O son of my womb, and what, O son of my vows? You know what? It says the mother taught him. Now you don't remember who the mother was? Mother of Solomon? Bathsheba. You remember the story that the first child she had with David died. The child of the adultery died. And apparently in verse 2, she made a vow to God for another child. I wish we would hear, because I'd get some of you to testify that who did the teaching in your home. I'm gathering it was your mother. I'm gathering that you sat at her feet learning more than you did your father. Now fathers work outside the home all right, so that maybe there's a reason for that. But nonetheless, mom is just the certified teacher in most homes. Now, in verse 3, note what she told Solomon. We don't know how old Solomon was at this time, but he could have been very young. If he had a pet name, he was probably very young. But listen to what it says in verse 3. Do not give your strength to women, or your ways to that which destroy kings. You know what he's saying? Watch out for the ladies, Solomon. I mean, they're out there to do you harm. They just don't do that. Don't give yourself to them that way. You know, I don't know, again, we don't know the age, but if Solomon was grown by now, that ship had already sailed probably. Because you realize Solomon had 1,000 wives and harems to go along with it. Now, but still, you know, with all of this going on, whatever age he was, mom was doing what moms do. She was loving, she was teaching, she was guiding, she was giving instructions. Now, before we get into this, woman, I want you ladies to just chill out a little bit, just think about this. When you read this and you say, oh, Lord, I can't do that. Good grief, all of that stuff she did. You know what? I know women that do most of that now. I have one in my house that does most of that now. You have one in your house, most likely, that does most of that now. It's not so much what she does, it's the fact that she fears God. And the fear of God is wisdom. You see, when we think about that, son, I don't want you to feel down and go beating up on yourself. Because when you go through there, you find something, well, I don't do that. Well, listen, you do enough of it. You do the things that need to be done in satisfying the requirements of a home life. When the verse said, who can find? Well, that's not meant to communicate that there were not other worthy women in Israel. It does communicate the surpassing value, though, of a godly wife. One who reveres God, one who honors God, respects God. You know, it's one who loves and supports and provides for her family. I have to tell you a little funny story. Back in high school, I played football. No, I wasn't very good either. But I remember in one game, I think it was the opening kickoff, I tackled a guy in the wrong place and it knocked me out for a moment. And I remember that. I guess I was carried over to the sideline and laid down on the sideline. And in a minute I opened my eyes, and who is the person I'm looking at? Yeah, that's right, my mother. She done bailed out of those stands coming to check on her child. You see, that's what moms do. And I probably thought in my mind at that time, Mom, what are you doing here? Get out of here. This is embarrassing. But Mom was doing what moms do. She was checking on her child. Now, it goes on to say in verse 10 there that her worth is what? Her worth is far above jewels. You see, in Proverbs, wisdom was worth more than jewels. You read the book of Proverbs, you see that she lived out her wisdom. And if you go back and read Proverbs chapter 8 and 9, where it talks about lady wisdom, she's a great example of lady wisdom in that she portrayed that in her life. Verses 11 and 12, it highlights the value of a wife that a wife brings to her husband. You know what? Her husband trusts her. She is trustworthy. Now, you know what? When you think about that, this husband can tell his wife, here's my credit card. You go shopping. You know what? You know, that makes some of us nervous when we do that because we're not sure. I think we'd be all right, but you never know. He knows she is not going to spend them into oblivion. He knows she is not going to run up a bill that you cannot pay because she is trustworthy. And she does him good all the days of her life. Now think about this, guy. Literally, I think what this means is that she's no cougar. She's not getting to middle age and begin to look around and say, wow, I need to find me a younger man. This guy's done getting too old for me. She's not that person. You know, when you look at a world of multiple wives and harems, and you look at, can you imagine the scheming and backstabbing? You only have to look at a few of those shows that we have on TV now. I think that there's one, Survivor is one of them. I guess the Bachelorettes and shows like that. I mean, can you imagine the scheming and conniving and that goes on, the backstabbing that goes on with 1,000 wives and harems? The very fact that the husband trusts his wife is a sign of high character that this wife had. In verse 13, it says she's not afraid to work with her hands. She's not too good to scrub floors. You know what? We see that all the time. I mean, you look back at your life, especially when I'm talking to the silver set, I don't even have to imagine that because I know that when you're in your 75, you're 80, you're 85, you're 90, you did those things because that's what you did at home. That's what women did. They cared for their home. They cared for their children. They provided for them. It says she is focused on the details of her family. She gathers the material to make clothes. Verse 14 says she travels great lengths for food and looks for bargains. Now, I can't help but think. She brings in the finest from around the world is what that means. I mean, she goes to trade ships and she looks for bargains. She buys the best she can buy for her family. She wisely trades from afar. Now, if you want someone that I know personally that wisely trades, well, you talk to Brenda Harper. Now, if you want to know how much a can of beans costs at Walmart, H-E-B, Kroger's, maybe Food Town, you just ask her. She's got a list when she's shopping. You ought to see her out there. I see her at Walmart occasionally. And I mean, she's about business because she's looking for bargains. She's getting the very best thing she can for her family. And you ask her about that because I believe she'll tell you the truth about that. Verse 15 says she rises early. She cooks and shares her food. In other words, she don't sleep in. She don't sleep in until 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. She does not waste time, guys. She even meets the needs of her servant girl. It doesn't say she did the work of a servant girl. She said she meets their needs. She makes sure that they have enough on hand to do their job. And then she shares the meal with them also. In verse 16, 17, it says she buys a farm, plants a garden, a vineyard. I don't know how many of you, coming from Jacksonville, we did stuff like this, and I was old enough to understand what was going on. But if you ever break new ground, there's a lot of silver sharers that could tell you all about breaking new ground. You take a breaking plow and you turn the land over, and then you get a disc and you disc it up. And then sometimes, even in Jacksonville, you'd have to go back and pick the rocks out and pick the stumps and roots and things before you could do that. You see, it's hard work. Guys, she's a serious businesswoman. And when it says she planted a vineyard, well, you know what you got to do before you plant a vineyard? There's a lot of work involved before you can even plant. And you can bet there's no weeds in her field because she's about her business. And did you notice what it said in verse 17 there also? She girds herself with strength and makes her arms strong. Guys, she's in shape. She works out. You may find her down at 24-hour fitness doing her thing because she intends to do that shape because all the things that she has on her plate, she wants to stay physically fit so that she can do those things. And in verses 18 through 20, it says her merchandise is good. You know what? She knows what she makes. She knows what quality it is. She knows how much care she did in making it. And so, you've heard that old saying about that, a man's work is from sun to sun. And a woman's work is, I heard it. Even though you're not here, I heard you say never done. Because that's what it is. A woman's work is never done. She's committed to her household. She gives to the poor. She's involved in charity. Verse 21 says that she's not concerned. She has done her due diligence. In verse 21, it says this, that she is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. You know what? She's planted. She knows what she's got. She's ready for winter. She's thought it through. She's made the clothes. She has winter clothes ready. And notice that she dresses her family with class when it says clothed with scarlet. Yes. Now, verse 22 says she makes her own clothes. Silk and purple signifies the royalty and blessing from God's grace. Now, guys, then we come to verse 23. I tried to skip verse 23, but you just can't do that. You can't just pick out the verses you want to teach about and then do this. But men, we ought to be ashamed. When you read this verse, all the things that we've been talking about this woman did, this wife did, and what did the man accomplish? Well, the husband sits at the gate. You got to think about that one for a minute. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. You know what? It could be that they sit and talk about it. It could be that today they could go down to Ken's restaurant and sit around breakfast and drink coffee and do all those things. Talk about the world's problem and go home and expect lunch to be there. I know it was more than that. When you sit at the gate, it was kind of an honor to sit at that gate. But when you see what she did and what he did, it makes us a little bit ashamed, guys. It says they talk and pass the time. I have to tell you that I come from a farming community in the panhandle of Texas, and we had in that little town what's called the Domino Hall. It was just a couple of little old sheds down there that had tables and dominoes set up, and all these old retired farmers would come down there early in the morning, and they would play dominoes until noon and go home and have lunch. Now, I'm telling you guys, that's what the men did. Now, but what Lemuel, what his mother is telling him, look, Lemuel, if you want respect from your elders, you find this woman. If you want honor, find this woman. If you want power to lead, you find this woman. So, God, even today, it holds true that behind every great man is a great woman. I believe that, and I hope you do too. Verse 24 says she had a business acumen. She makes and sells clothes. You know what? I can tell you that the lady that lived at my house didn't sell them, but she made clothes. She made clothes for our two daughters all the way into high school. Yeah, they didn't like that for a while, but then they realized that there was a handmade clothes here that you couldn't go buy off the shelf at Foley's. And you couldn't get it because it was specially made for you. And they soon became proud of those clothes that she was making. Verse 25 says, she dresses with and moves with dignity. I like this part of it too. I got an idea with all that this woman had going for her. She's probably a beautiful lady too. I could not help but think, I don't care what you think about the president or your political views, it doesn't matter. But when I think of the president's wife, I think of someone who dresses and moves with dignity. Now, the scripture also says she smiled at the future. Now, what in the world does that mean? She smiled at the future. Well, she didn't know the future, but it was okay because she was prepared. When you think about this, not out of haughtiness or pride does she smile, but out of knowing she is prepared for the future, whatever comes. That describes the character of one who fears the Lord. Now, we're getting close here now. In verse 26, it says this, that she has wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She has wisdom with kindness. Verse 27 says this, she looks well to the ways of her household, does not eat the bread of idleness. With the bread of idleness literally means eyes looking everywhere. Eyes looking everywhere. Always you got a different plan. You always got a different idea. You always going to try something else. You leave something half done, go to something else. That's what eyes looking elsewhere is talking about. This lady is a busy person. She's no time for chilling out. She don't have time to watch daytime television. She's a genuine hard worker, and she attends to the affairs of her family. Verse 28 and 29. Her children rise up and bless her. Her husband also, and he praises her, saying. You know, it's interesting. Her children. I remember I thought about that verse when our mom passed away, and I couldn't sleep that night. I woke up the next morning probably about 4 o'clock, and sitting at that kitchen table in her home, this chapter came to my mind. And this thing about her children rise up and cause her blessing, it rang a true bell with our family, because that's the way Mother was. Now, but she also said her husband praises her. He said, your daughters have done well, but you excel them all. Verse 30 says this, she knows that charm and beauty are vain. She knows that all of that beauty tip she has, she's great looking, but she knows that that's all vanity. She knows it'll fade. She knows it'll go away at some point. But the woman who fears the Lord will be praised. Think about those things as you think about that beauty in vain. Verse 31 says, give her respect, praise her. She is honored, she is valued. Her husband is the object of envy from his peers. I got an idea that old boy sitting at that gate, all those other men saying, wow, man, I don't know how you got your wife to do all that, but she's a good one. She's a keeper. You need to hang on to her because she fears the Lord. She respects, she honors the Lord. Now, ladies, let me say this. If you aim at the stars, you may hit the moon. But if you aim at nothing, you can rest assured you're going to hit it. I want to tell you something. Now, I just want to defer here just a moment. We're coming down to the end of this. And now, you young men out there that are single, or maybe you're just looking, and you're marriageable age, and you're saying this, man, that's the woman I want to marry. That's the woman I want to meet. Where is she? Well, Let me just give you a little bit of hint, guys, and then take this to heart. The Lord may have to do a mighty work in your life for that type of woman to be interested in you. So what's that saying about men? Man, let's clean up our act a little bit. Let's make ourselves someone that type of person might take an interest in, that we could do that. See, the world says experiment a little bit, guys. Go out there. You're young. Go ahead and experiment some. You just try this and try that. And just a little bit never hurts you. See, the danger of experimentation is sometimes it leads to enslavement. That old treble hook gets caught in you and you can't get loose from it. So will you be devoted to Lady Wisdom or Lady Folly? Which one will capture your heart? And what path will you take in your life? You take the broad path, you take the narrow path. You're going to have to get on that narrow path for a lady like this to be interested in you. You know what, guys? What it boils down to, all we have to do is die. I know you say, hey, you must be nuts. No. All you have to do is die. What does Scripture say in the New Testament there? Scripture says, love your wife like Christ loved the church. What did Christ do for the church? He died. So that's what needs to happen in our hearts and our lives, guys. Let me just conclude by saying this. The Proverb 31 woman, what a picture of beauty and strength she is. You can almost see her smiling as she looks at the horizon of her life. And she looks out there and there's a smile on her face. You know, she's not insecure. She's not afraid because she's prepared in her life. She trusts God. Her world is bigger than the demands of the day. Her strength is an inner strength, a confidence in God. No wonder her children rise up and bless her. And no wonder her husband happily praises her. I'm going to leave you with this thought right here, guys. Here is a picture of one who lives her life on the path God has set for her. She stays right between the lines and does those things that pleases and honor God. And that's why she is the Proverbs 31 woman. Thank you again. I'm going to pray for us and then we'll be dismissed from this lesson today. Our Lord, we are just grateful today, God, for you in our lives. God, sometimes we just take so much for granted. We take it that you're just going to be there. You're going to do with us what you need to do with us. Well, God, but we know that if we would just trust you, if we would just fear you, if we would do those things that please and honor you, we could have all of these characteristics of the Proverbs 31 woman. God, I thank you for loving us the way you do. I thank you for giving us. Lord, I pray, God, that any days ahead that you will bless our church, you will bless our people. God, that you will make us patient with what's going on in this world today. God, that you will protect us from the virus that's out there running rampant even now. Lord, we thank you, we praise you, and we love you in Christ's name. Amen. May you have a God-blessed day. Thank you.